This video might quite literally change your life, and you don't have to be a business owner. You don't have to be an employee. This principle works for everybody in the world, and it literally changed my life, and I only found out about it 2 months ago. So the 80-20 principle, which was founded by an Italian man in the 1800s, very fitting for me as an Italian. And basically it is, I'm paraphrasing, but it's assigning 80% of your time into the 20% that makes the production or the output. So most people have 20% of their time or 20% of their efforts produces, 80% of their results. But the other 80% of the time is the lackluster that takes up all the time and that wastes their time, wastes their energy, their brains, dollars, whatever it is, whether you're an employee, whether you're a business owner. And this principle is so valuable and so true. I want you guys to seriously think about this in your head, about in your day-to-day, whether you want to look at it in work life, whether you want to look at it in sports or relationships, friendships. Think about the 80% of that you do and that takes up your time on a day-to-day basis. Whatever that is, running errands, something particular in your business, whether that's focusing on something with your employees, focusing on a certain task, and understand how little that makes up of your production. Literally 20% of your production. But whatever you do for 20% of the day, and this could be in your personal life, that creates 80% of your happiness, or in your business, the 20% creates 80% of the profits, or as an employee, what you do 20% of the day in the workday creates 80% of the production for your company. So I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory, how this directly on a massive scale changed my life. It might be a little bit more drastic than you could have imagined or pictured, but about 2 to 3 months ago, I left a company I started. And it was a physical company. I don't want to get into the details too much about what it was, but it was basically a construction company. And I left that company because I had e-commerce and I had a second company that I started, which was a construction company. And in a construction company, paraphrasing, that's a physical, you have to be present in a physical location. You have to be, very familiar with being boots on the ground, being in person to jobs, right? And I did it for about a year. Now I had my e-commerce business all online for 3 years. And I evaluated myself. Once I learned this rule, which I learned this rule in the book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which is essentially my Bible at this point. And, I'll make a whole video on the 4-Hour Workweek as well. But this rule emphasized it over and over and over again in this book. And I sat down and I had to have a true evaluation with myself. And I said, okay, let's look at the 80-20 rule. Not on a specific scale, not on a minor scale, but on a broad scale. Let's talk about happiness. Let's talk about money. And let's talk about, future. 80% of my time when I had the two businesses was directly into the construction company, okay? And it probably was even 90. For this case, we'll say 80-20 because it was the 80-20 rule. So I was assigning 80% of my time on a day-to-day basis into the construction company, going to job sites, communicating with customers, figuring out solutions, trying to grow the company. And on a financial aspect, the profit, the money-wise, that it brought to me was not even close to 20%, okay? It was probably near 2 to 3%. And the energy it took from me was way more than 80%, probably 95%. And my e-commerce business, the financial aspect of it, it took about 5% of my day or 10% of my day, 0% of my stress. And it funded everything for me. So I had to evaluate it. Let's look at the 80-20 rule, I said to myself. I have one business, construction. I have to be location dependent. I'm miserable. I'm basically a customer service agent who owns the company. And it brings me no money. Now, any person with a right conscious mind would say, I'm done, right? And I was at that point. And now I look at my e-commerce business. Location independent, can run it from anywhere in the world, takes 5% of my day, and it makes me the happiest. I said to myself, what would happen if I took the other 80% for this scenario and put it into my e-commerce business, and 100% of my time was focused on my e-commerce business? What would be the results? What would happen? And once I evaluated that, I spoke to people. Obviously, there was a transition period. It was a bit hard to go through. And I sat down and I said to myself, there is only one right answer. I have to leave this company. So sadly, not sadly for me, I guess you can call it, but unfortunately, my ties with that company were done. I passed it over. I was on to just focusing on my e-commerce business. And it was, quote unquote, a risky decision, right? Because I was making a decision for a company that I invested all this time and effort into to make essentially $0, right? And now, what was I going to do next? That was a question I heard all day long. What were you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And I said, I'm just going to double down on what works for me. So let's take this into your life. I want you to seriously think about this, whether you want to close your eyes or just imagine or just picture it very, very evidently and clearly and say to yourself, whether it's in a relationship, friendship, work life, what do you do 20% of your time, effort, money, etc., that contributes to 80% of the results? It has to be something, okay? What do you do? And then what do you do 80% of the time that contributes to 20% of the results? Because what you want to do is to change your life. Like literally, this changed my life. Like this is a first person point of view, life-changing perspective. If you want to change your life in this aspect, is take that 80% of the time that is a waste, let's call a spade, it's a waste, and put it into the 20% to make it close to 100, as close as you can get, and watch how exponentially your life grows. Now, going off of that point, I'm going to tie this into working remote. So, from my past with a construction company, leaving the company, going all in on e-commerce, this 80-20 principle and this realization of life taught me only one thing. It is work remote or nothing. And this is for many of you. Many of you who are working a job, whether it's a construction job, a physical job, in-person, office job. Maybe your employer doesn't let you go out to work. Maybe you have to have 5 days in the office because they think it's required, but it's really bogus. It's really nonsense. You know, you can probably get your job done in 1 to 2 hours a day, but they want to just hold you there hostage. It's ridiculous. I realized that having the ability to work remote and getting a job done, getting my tasks done in an hour or two a day from anywhere in the world, becoming location independent, doing it from Thailand, doing it from Bali, doing it successfully. Honest to gosh, take it from me, who's been traveling the world for 3 years now. You can 1000% throw your monitor in the ocean, throw your whatever you need in the ocean. You can 1000% do the same task that you're doing now from anywhere in the world. And this took it from me and saying that I need to dump this business. I need to dump this construction business, get away from being anywhere location dependent, take the 80-20 principle into my life and say that I need to change that 80% of my time, probably 90%, and put it into the 20% to get as close as I can to 100. I've done that for 2 months now. My life has completely skyrocketed, okay? Like you're talking from a first person point of view, a skyrocketed lifestyle from doing this. And it doesn't have to apply to just the work life. It could apply to anything. It could apply to even, you could break it down by scenario, okay? You could break it down by type of what you're doing, by weeks, by months, by days, etc. But if you are in the working world, if you are in the working life, this could apply to you ever more some, because I want you to challenge yourself. Seriously, take this upon a challenge of yourself, pride, ego, you name it. Try to get your job 100% remote and watch your life completely elevate and skyrocket to the next level. Because when you do, when you become completely remote and you realize that I wasted so much time in doing stuff that didn't matter, I wasted 80% of my time talking to coworkers, eating lunch at a desk, on the phone, wasting my time with customers or emails, checking emails. That's the biggest one. You can see how exponentially your life will change, and it has done so for me. So I'm going to leave you off with that, the 80-20 principle. Please, please, please look into it, do research, read books on it. It's unbelievable, this principle. And it stems all the way back from, like I said, this Italian economist in the 1800s. And he started with farming and, Italian stuff, right? But do research on it, look at it, believe it, understand it, and turn your life around with it. So there you go. I appreciate you guys watching the video. Like, subscribe. I have a ton of travel content coming up, a ton of work remote, e-commerce content coming up as well. So you can guys get a good idea and concept of e-commerce and traveling, working remote. But yeah, stay tuned. I have a ton of content coming up, and I know you guys will love it. And more stuff like this, where little reminders like this will truly, truly nail it into your head and change your working life.